Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome our guests and panelists to the talk International Education at Crossroads in Canada, organized by the Waterloo branch of the Canadian International Council. My name is Laszlo Sarkany, and I have the pleasure of serving the branch as its president. Today, we are extremely fortunate to be able to convene this very high-level panel on a topic that is certainly timely, topical, extremely urgent, and not to mention very popular. Before we start, please allow me to read a statement on land acknowledgement. The Waterloo branch of the Canadian International Council is located on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. The branch is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. And without much delay, I'd like to turn it over to our distinguished moderator, Dr. John Malloy, who is the director of the Center for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College in Waterloo. John?
Great, thank you very much, Laszlo. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this very special event hosted by the Canadian International Council, the Waterloo branch. It's a pleasure to inform you that it's sold out. All 500 spots have been taken. We were joking, there may be people out in the parking lot selling links, we're not sure, but this is a very, I think, shows the importance of this topic. And don't worry if you have colleagues or friends that weren't able to sign in. It is being recorded and it'll be available for your use and for the public's use. As you heard, my name is John Malloy. I'm, again, as you heard, the director of the Center for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College, which is federated with Wilfrid Laurier University. I'm also the practitioner in residence in Laurier's Department of Political Science. I also had the privilege of serving as Ontario's Minister of Training Colleges and Universities, actually on 2 occasions, and was actively involved in the international education file. It's through that role that I first discovered how vital international students are to both our post-secondary education system, our economy, as well as our standing with other nations. Canada is now the 3rd largest destination for international students, and it's estimated that these students support almost 170,000 jobs and contribute over $21 billion to Canada's GDP. Many international students, of course, choose to stay in Canada, or if they return to their country of origin, they become informal ambassadors for our nation. Unfortunately, as with so many aspects of our society, COVID-19 has changed everything when it comes to international students. The disruption of how post-secondary education is delivered and limits on international travel have created significant challenges. In light of these challenges, we've assembled a panel of distinguished guests to do 3 things. First, to speak about the importance of international education and the challenges posed by COVID-19. Second, outline some of their ideas about overcoming these challenges. And finally, does a post-pandemic world with a new reliance on technology create opportunities for Canadian post-secondary institutions to increase their presence in the world? Before we get started, I want to briefly introduce our panel. All are distinguished in their own right, and I hope you've had a chance to review their biographies that came out in the package you received when you registered. But I'm just going to give a very, very quick overview. They are the Honourable Marco Mendicino, Canada's Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, obviously a key player in this file. Paul Davidson, President and CEO of Universities Canada. Dr. John Tibbetts, President of Conestoga College, based here in Waterloo Region. Meti Basiri, co-founder of ApplyBoard, which is also based in Waterloo Region. Meti is a former international student himself, while ApplyBoard is a Canadian-based technology company that works with international students and institutions to help streamline the application process. Finally, we have Nina Shirkanlu, an employee of ApplyBoard and an international student from Iran. So I'm going to ask each panelist to speak for about 5 minutes. We're going to have a poll of the audience on issues related to international education. We're going to have a chance for panelists to respond to what they've heard, and then we want to hear from you. And you'll note at the bottom there is of your screen, there's a question and answer function, and we'll try to get it to as many questions as possible a little bit later in the program. So to set the stage about the importance of international education and the challenges of COVID-19, I thought we'd start with Paul to give sort of a 30,000-foot perspective. So I'll turn it over to you, Paul.
Paul, you should unmute yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the first to say that.
Hey, I now qualify to be a member of Parliament, because when I watch Parliament now, the first thing they say is unmute your line.
You're
John,
too civil.
I haven't started yet, Minister. John, thanks so much for moderating this today, and thanks to CIC Waterloo for organizing this event. It's so important. It's great to be with colleague panelists, and it's great to be with folks from ApplyBoard again, because we work together in advancing the Canada brand around the world. John mentioned that there are over 500 people connected today. And let me just say to those of you who are international students who may be considering Canada, welcome. This is not a usual year, but you are welcome to join us in a high quality education that's safe and secure and welcoming. It's online for now and will be in person just as soon as we can be. To those that are university and college professionals, thank you for the work that you've done over the last 6 and 7 months to keep the international higher education community moving forward in Canada. You responded immediately during the pandemic to provide support to those international students that are here, to provide accommodation to those that couldn't get home, and to pivot into the online environment quickly and well. So thanks for innovating in real time and promoting the Canada brand on campuses across Canada and internationally. Minister, it's always a pleasure to see you today, and I want to say thank you to you for being such a champion for international students coming to Canada, both with us and colleagues around this panel, but also at the cabinet table and really driving some really important innovations, whether it's the flexibility on work and study permits, the flexibility of online enrollment, and also providing care to international students here in Canada. We still have lots of issues to do together, but I want to really acknowledge your leadership in being a champion on these sets of issues. Let me provide just a very brief bit of context. You know, the number of international students in Canada has tripled since the last economic downturn. They make a contribution that's in excess of $21 billion a year. And that's not just to higher education institutions. That's to communities large and small, and not just Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, but communities right across the country. And more than their immediate economic contribution, they're a vital part of Canada's immigration strategy, Canada's trade strategy, and Canada's economic growth strategy. And so this is about more than higher education institutions. This is about all of Canada succeeding. And I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't say that in a world of closing borders and closing minds, when the value of international exchange and international experience is increasingly being questioned, Canada is a leader and can continue to be a leader in welcoming international students to Canada. It's so important in trying to build the world we want as a middle-sized country in the world, that Canada continues to welcome international students. Now, we do have some issues that we need to address. And I guess right off the top, and Minister Mendicino and I and others on this panel have been working to make sure that we can safely reopen the borders as quickly as possible. And that involves aligning the work of the Border Services Agencies, the Public Health Agency of Canada, Immigration Canada, and others, and our provinces. And that work is really important that we move forward on that. The second is that there has been an economic impact for us as higher education institutions. I think John Tibbetts will speak more directly about that. But we are seeing a significant economic hit to our institutions by the loss of international students. And I hope over the course of this afternoon, we'll also chat about how we can work together to rebuild and recover our traditional markets and extend the Canada brand into new and emerging markets as well. John, I'm going to leave it at that. I know you've got lots of great panelists to provide more detail and elaboration.
No, thank you, Paul. You set a framework, and I'd now like to move over to the minister. Paul mentioned some of the initiatives that the federal government's taken, and I know you'll want to expand on them and see, outline your vision of where you see we're going on this very important file. So welcome, Minister.
Well, merci beaucoup, John. Thank you. And thank you, Paul. And I maintain that you would make a very agreeable and civilized member of parliament should you ever choose to take up that career path. But thank you for the opportunity to join this esteemed conversation. In particular, I want to express my gratitude to the Canadian International Council, Waterloo Region Branch, for your leadership and for being an advocate in this space. I want to also recognize my honorable colleague, Bardish Chagger, who has also been a tireless champion for this file and represents good people from the Kitchener-Waterloo region. And finally, my co-panelists, along with all of the other faculty, students, and prospective students who have made this a sold-out event. So congratulations to all of us for having this important conversation at this very timely juncture. COVID-19 has profoundly disrupted all Canadian businesses and institutions, as you've heard, and the world of academia is certainly no exception. It's a unique and vital part of Canadian society, and we can see very clearly the pandemic and travel restrictions have had a tremendous impact on both international students and their respective learning institutions. Since late March, when border restrictions were first introduced in Canada, many institutions have accommodated international students, introducing a number of new measures, including distance learning, and we're seeing some of that technology on display right now. We were quick to implement a number of measures to support international students, as well as the institutions and communities that host them. And we recognize that in many of these instances, they are the lifeblood of the community, as is the educational institutions which are hosting them. We became immediately concerned about people here temporarily who have been unable to leave the country. And that's why we encouraged international students to extend their status in Canada and afforded them the additional time to provide their documentation or complete biometrics, given the challenges posed by our normal application requirements. One of the important initial exemptions we made to the travel ban was to allow foreign nationals who already had a valid study permit to return to Canada if stranded overseas. We then got down to work on designing and introducing a series of measures to facilitate distance learning and online opportunities, and in order to ensure that Canada remains an attractive destination for international students, carefully considering their options during a global pandemic. I'd also like to note that the ideas, advice, and tireless advocacy of some of those joining on this very panel, as I've already acknowledged, were absolutely integral to developing these measures. And I thank you all for your constructive collaboration. For students beginning new programs of study, we allowed them to begin their studies overseas through distance learning without affecting their future eligibility for a postgraduate work permit. We've worked through our operational and capacity challenges to focus resources on providing priority for permit and visa processing to ensure that the permits are getting issued as quickly as possible. We've also provided assurances to international students who were unable to submit all of the required documentation and who are studying remotely with a temporary two-stage approval process. Now, since the implementation of this innovative process at the end of July, my department has rendered more than 56,000 positive approvals. As our visa application centers and other services begin to reopen, applicants can then submit any missing documents to complete their application. All of these changes were introduced to give students more certainty about their ability to enter Canada to complete their studies once travel and health restrictions are eased, and to still be eligible to work in Canada after their graduation. Ultimately, our goal in designing these changes was to help maintain Canada's reputation as a premier destination for international students. And you heard it right off the top from John, the third largest destination for international students, and a huge jobs creator and economic contributor. We all recognize the contributions of international students to Canada are immense, economically, socially, and culturally. Economically, international students have had a greater impact on Canada's economy than that of our exports on auto, lumber, or aircraft. Now, as most of you know, and as you've heard, they contribute over $21 billion annually to our economy. Culturally, Canada is deeply enriched by the academic participation of the most talented and enthusiastic minds from around the world. And likewise, we understand that international students benefit from their in-person learning experiences here in Canada and from directly engaging with their peers. While the COVID-19 pandemic has presented a number of challenges to all Canadian businesses and institutions, our whole of government approach has been aimed at protecting the health of Canadians while minimizing the economic and social impact of any restrictions. In all of our decisions with respect to international students, the government continues to work very closely with provinces and territories who, as you know, have jurisdiction over education and healthcare. My colleague, Minister Haidu, is leading the effort to ensure that each institution has an acceptable COVID-19 response plan in place to support international students that have been approved by their respective province or territory. This approach will ensure that international students may only enter Canada to study at a school that has been determined to meet all of the public health requirements by the province or territory where it is located. And this approach will help to ensure the safety of both international as well as domestic students, as well as all Canadians. To balance our economic recovery with our safety and security, we will need to ensure that the actions we take continue to both respond to the pandemic and position Canada for future economic success. I truly believe that immigration will not only strengthen our post-COVID economic recovery in the short term, but that it will continue to contribute to our economy and communities in the long run. Last year, Canada hosted over 650,000 international students at the post-secondary education level, and more than 58,000 became permanent residents. Certainly, we want international students to come here to study and to contribute to their institution's local community. But that being said, they also make excellent candidates for permanent residency, and there are tremendous opportunities for our country if these individuals choose to stay here. With their Canadian education and work experience, for some, international students have already begun that integration. They've also established key social contacts and networks in the communities where they study, all of which is the formula for success here in Canada. Regardless of the worldwide impact of COVID-19, I steadfastly believe that immigration will continue to play a vital role in our economy, just as it has in recent years. Once again, thank you for inviting me to discuss the government's approach to these issues, and I'm very much looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thanks for your support. I know it's been very important on this file. We wanted to now turn to, call it the front lines, I guess, from the administrative side, and hear the head of an institution which has a very robust, or usually has a very robust number of international students, and that, of course, is Conestoga College. We're fortunate to have President John Tibbetts. So, John, if you want to outline some of the challenges and what you've seen unfold over these extraordinary months.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'll talk specifically about Conestoga. Conestoga is an applied learning institution that has a full range of programming from trades to degrees and post-diploma programs. In normal times, we would have about 21,000 full-time students. One of the reasons we got actively involved in international education was that we are located in the KW, Cambridge, Guelph, Brantford area, which is one of the economic engines of Canada. It's, the Waterloo, we call it the Waterloo-Toronto corridor. Some people call it the Toronto-Waterloo, but it's the Waterloo-Toronto corridor. And what it became clear and clear to us that one of the big issues we were facing is the big skills gap, the skill shortage. People have jobs, jobs without people, that scenario. And declining birth rates, rapid automation in the KW area, growing economy, we could not meet the needs, even though even presently we have 50% of the workforce has taken a course at the college. We were not able to meet the demand. And so we moved rapidly over the last decade or so. And so a day before the pandemic hits, so to speak, about 40% of our full-time enrollment was international, full-time international, and very well helped. It helped us in a great deal to meet the really burgeoning skills needs in this community, because we're bringing people with degrees, engineering degrees, etc. It also made a big difference for us. I mean, there's no question we are a better college. We are more sophisticated in simulation, and I just was down at the college in the afternoon, and very sophisticated virtual reality materials that we would have had trouble paying for before. The renovation of classrooms and improving remote learning capabilities, a huge investment that we could not have made on our own. So it's made a big difference. And also it's made a difference in the community. It's also saved me a lot of money in paying for tennis balls. And I'll just tell you a little side story. I play a lot of tennis, and a friend of mine plays, and he has a car dealership, and he said, look, you don't have to pay anymore. 15 of your students have bought cars from me, so forget paying for the tennis balls. So, I mean, that's a little anecdotal part, but they have a tremendous impact across the board. The pandemic has been huge. It's really been a blow for us. We were projecting 11,000 full-time international this fall. We'll be fortunate if we get 8,000. We're expecting tuition declines of about 55 million in international, another 20 in ancillary revenues, and another 6 million in PPE costs on a budget of about 360 million. So very, very significant. And it's not only the immediate impact. One of the biggest issues here is the uncertainty of the length. I mean, obviously, if you listen to Fox News, it's ending tonight, the pandemic. But if you listen to Dr. Fauci and others, this could go on for some time. So we're very concerned about that, how long it will go on. We, by the way, you should know, we brought 3,300 students in this summer, spring and summer, without anyone getting COVID, so it can be done, but it was at a great cost to allow students, because we're very big in engineering, health, and trades, we brought them in face-to-face with significant, obviously, health and safety measures. So we have about 4,000 face-to-face, but that's 17,000 that are in remote. As I said, it's very, the impact on polytechnical institutions like ourselves is huge, because so much of our learning is face-to-face, applied learning, hands-on. We cannot do everything remote. And so it puts a huge amount of pressure on us. It also, as the minister would know, there's the level one, the first year students, they're the ones that were having trouble getting in. And the universities have an advantage in that they're bringing them in mainly to 4-year programs, and we're bringing them into 1- and 2-year programs. So that's also a major hit for colleges. I'm going to say this, Minister, we're very pleased. Obviously, the moves that you've made for allowing us to bring people online have mitigated the losses. There's no question we'd be in much worse shape. And the adjustments as far as getting their certificates to stay in the country and work permits, et cetera, has made a big difference. We certainly wouldn't mind the feds and the province working closely together, because you mentioned very clearly that the hit is bigger than the automotive hit. And when the automotive hit took place, there was some help. And if that was possible, especially for the institutions, I mean, institutions like ourselves, this is like being on a ship that's been hit with about 5 torpedoes in the bow and another one in the stern. So we need to, we need some help there, but we also appreciate what you have done to help. We also must continue, I think, to find ways to help these students complete their studies online in the meantime, enable them to get through Canada. I know we're working on this proper screening, testing, and quarantining, and ensuring that they're COVID-free when they attend the college and universities. I think another thing we should look at in the future, I think it's a big issue, certainly for colleges, the diversification. We have a lot of people from one particular country, namely India. That puts us at great risk. I think we need to, going forward, have a greater diversification of, and perhaps some help in marketing Canada across the world. Yes, we're working on faster approval of visas, very important for us. And I agree with you, post-pandemic, I think the growth of international enrollments, I know I've talked to Meti about this and others, that I think international will come back strongly. It's just that we don't know when. And obviously, we also believe that immigration will be important to rebuild our communities and the economy, because I think quite clearly, whatever trends were going on in automation, artificial intelligence are going to be accelerated. There's going to be a greater loss of low-skilled jobs. We're going to have to put more effort into bringing in people with skills, but also helping our domestic population get up to higher levels, both in soft skills, but also higher technical skills. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about this very important topic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that very important perspective. I'd now like to turn to Meti. You're working with the international student population, and obviously you've got a perspective on this, but you can also tell us about what some of the trends are that you see, and sort of the temperature check of what's going on out there. So welcome.
Thank you so much, John. Thanks, CIC, for hosting us today. And thank you, Minister, for being a true champion during this pandemic. I know that literally 2 weeks ago, when the news came at ApplyBoard, we had a daily record of number of students that we could have helped in entire of the last 5.5 years. So truly, we appreciate what you and your office been doing in terms of making the students being able to start their education. So in terms of ApplyBoard, I think majority of people know now we're the largest recruitment platform for any students, for students coming to Canada. We've been working with many of public institutions that welcome international students in Canada, including Conestoga College, one of our key partners. So we definitely can see the demand is there for stay. I don't think that international students don't want to come to Canada. There is a lot of financial impact for many of the family, but definitely the demand of Canada is still very strong for students. I don't think there is any question around why international students should come to Canada. Myself, I came to this amazing country about 10 years ago, and proudly I'm a citizen, and now we're the one of the 3 unicorn in Canada. So, and there is many other international students that came to the Canada and build a successful business, or they're working in many great companies. So there is no question around that. Obviously, we saw a massive drop in a number of students when the pandemic started, and but we're fully recovered in last few weeks. We're pretty much stronger than before pandemic. We're receiving the students. Definitely some countries such as India and Brazil, there has been more challenge because there is a different visa requirement in some cases, and the country has been hit more. But I definitely think Canada is at the stage that we would be able to welcome a student soon enough. And I think the clarity around when that's gonna be, it's super important for the students that they can make their decision and coming back, and echoing what John Tabet says, it's super important to just be upfront with the students. We have welcomed more than 4.4 million people since pandemic has started through land, air, based on CBC news. 200,000 more international students can be manageable too when it's a massive economic hit for the country. And certainly, I think benefit of international students, many post-secondary institutions had a stronger balance sheet, so they managed it in the past 2 intake. It would be very challenging to see if this continue for upcoming intakes and there is nothing happen. But generally speaking, I want to end this with one massive, I think, opportunity for Canada that exists. Last 2 or 3 years, Canada was at the position that we had more interest that we could have handled. I think we can be super smart around this and turn the table and say, how do we take advantage of this? So post-COVID, we can even allow students to start online. Over 3 months, schools went majority of the courses online. So how do we allow students to put their portion of their classes online at a fraction of cost? How we make education more affordable and accessible for a student? Certainly, Canada does have the brand to be the premier and the best, I would say, country and be the #1 in terms of welcoming international students. And obviously this pressure is the time for all countries. We're not alone. We're all in one, but I think the country that take advantage at make this pressure to a diamond. Remember, carbon, when you put a carbon on pressure, diamond comes out of it. So how do we become diamond post-COVID and welcome any students want to go abroad to come to Canada? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meti, and I think we all appreciate your optimism at the end. we need a lot more optimism these days. But our final speaker, last but not least, as they say, is to hear, of course, from an international student. Meti is a former international student, but this is a more recent international student. Nina, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the situation and where we go from here. And welcome.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Minister, for joining this event, and it's an honor to be in this event. My student journey started in Canada in January 2017 by studying postgraduate project management at Honourable College and international business management at Cambrian College. Studying in Canada taught me tremendous lessons and gave me the opportunity to put theory into practice by interacting with others. The academic environment is not only about education, but also about improving interpersonal skills such as teamwork, leadership, responsibility, and so on for the future, which are really valuable. Canada is the golden opportunity land because of career, life, and growth opportunities. It's a multicultural country which welcomes immigrants who are coming for education and offers permanent residency program. An example of how encouraging studying in Canada is that even my siblings applied for education in Canada, and they came to Conestoga College, and after graduation, they're working right now in 2 banks in Canada. In my career role as manager international recruitment at ApplyBoard, I work with students who really like me and are looking to study in Canada. Working with students, I hear some of their concerns, including the length of online education and also some concerns regarding tuition fee and the effect of the length of online education on post-graduation work permit, as we all are aware that majority of programs that international students are applying is for 1 year education, and based on the updates that have been released, 50% online education and 50% in-person can be resulted to be eligible for post-graduation work permit. But what if the upcoming intakes are going to be online as well, and what should they do in that aspect? Canada is the destination for international students, and we want to make sure that we can help them to achieve it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very, very much, Nina, for sharing your story and talking about some of your work at ApplyBoard. So now we're going to take, in a sense, a little pause because we want to hear what the audience thinks. And we're going to put up some polling question, or a polling question, that you'll have a chance to respond to. I'm not going to be one of those annoying moderators that reads it out loud. I'll give you a chance to read it and make your choice on the screen. And we'll have it at some results in a few seconds.
Would it be cheating if we answer too, or we shouldn't?
I think you just are supposed to answer one. I'm not sure. Not sure if people are still voting or if we're going to see the results flash up on the screen. Oh, they're still voting. I got a little ahead of myself there. All right, so we see how we can flash that on the screen. So the principal benefit, international students, graduating international students are a potential source of the well-qualified immigrants which Canada needs, was number one, but sort of a tie for they contribute to the internationalization and financial health of Canadian educational institutions and Canada's global reputation. So thank you all for filling that out, and we'll have another question in a few minutes. But we want to go back to the panel and open it up for a little bit of I don't know, call it a roundtable discussion. Members of the audience will have a chance, and I remind you to use your Q&A. If you use the Q&A function, not the chat function, but the Q&A function to put forward questions, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. I also know, I said this at the beginning, but just to confirm, this is being recorded, and you know, the proceedings of today will be available to you for your reviewing, and for people who are interested who couldn't be here today. To the panel, I think in all the comments we heard today, there's two things that come up. Obviously, it's uncertainty. We're not sure where we go from here, how long this pandemic is going to last. But the other thing that I heard, and you know, I don't think we should underplay, and that's opportunity. Canada was well positioned before COVID-19, and you know, as we move forward, as I think we have to re-envision post-secondary education, how do we position ourselves to be the sort of the giants of the field as we move forward? So I thought we've got, you know, government representatives. I'm not going to put the minister on the spot. As a former provincial minister, I know you have a slice of the pie, not the whole pie. So I don't put you on the spot for the whole thing. We have people from the sector. We have people out there. So maybe, I mean, Paul, can I start with you again, because you sort of have that 50,000 foot level. You know, the easiest thing to do, I guess, we all go home and talk about this after the pandemic's over. That can't happen. We have to continue on. How do we position ourselves? What are some key things we should be doing in the short term? And what are some of the key things we should be doing to position ourselves in the long term?
I think, again, Canada's universities are playing a key role in accelerating Canada's economic and social recovery. We're doing that with domestic students, but also there's a huge opportunity with international students. In the very short term, the kind of collaboration, the kind of work we've done with Minister Mendicino and with others to make sure we get the rules of the game as clearly established as quickly as possible, to make sure that we can begin to welcome international students back into Canada safely. That's a big priority. I mean, Mr. Mendicino knows we've been working on this since last March, and we know that September is the key month for the fall term, but we're going to keep at it and keep working together, not only at the federal level, but with the provinces as well, to make sure that it can be done safely for the international students and for the Canadian communities. Over the longer term, Meti was right. You know, there have been huge assets and huge strengths that have been revealed by the Canadian university higher education system as a result of the pandemic, and that's the ability to address the needs of international students online, the ability to provide services and support to those international students that are here. And we've got a brand that we can aggressively promote. And I know that Canada's universities are eager to do that, not only in our traditional markets, which would mean China and India and France, but also in new and emerging markets. I'm thinking here of Vietnam, Philippines, Colombia, and others, where we know there's a desire, an appetite, and an ability for international students to come to study in Canada. I think, you know, we're living through that uncertain period right now, and a number of our members have been on the phone with them throughout the week and throughout the last several months about what the international enrollment numbers look like this fall, how many have been able to come back. You know, there's still a lot of anxiety about that, and there will be significant hardship for the institutions as a result of them not being here this fall. But the opportunity lies ahead for Canada, and the brand proposition is still enormously strong.
Great, thank you, Paul. I'm going to hold off on calling in the minister. I want to have a few people, if that's okay. You're a special guest, but we'd love to have you respond to maybe some of the ideas that come forward. So, John, maybe I'll turn to you. And again, how do we get through the uncertainty of the next little while, and how do we position ourselves over the longer term to be continue to be a powerhouse and, in fact, enhance our standing?
Okay, well, there's a number of issues. I think Paul touched on one of them, and that's diversification of markets. I think that's very important. That's a big issue. I think also, you know, there are a lot of people coming into the country now as it is, more than we realize. And I guess I'm not asking the minister to answer this, but can we find ways to screen, test, quarantine to make sure, I mean, we got people going off on, you know, celebrity cruises, not so much now, but on all kinds of things like this, and then come back in and spread the virus. So are there ways that we can get more sophisticated? Not everyone in India is sick. Not everyone in Brazil is sick. Are there ways that we can do this in a more sophisticated way so that we can be guaranteed that people are coming over here and they don't have COVID-19? I think the other thing we should be working on, there's still a lot of people that, I mean, look, we went quickly to remote learning. We call it remote now, but let's say the remote online. And I think, you know, what do we have, a week or something like that to do it? I think there are ways to make this kind of learning more sophisticated. I think I mentioned earlier, I was just down at the college today looking at a way to train healthcare professionals with artificial intelligence, and it's a much higher level of, virtual reality, much higher level of simulation. So are there ways that we can make it that this remote part is not something that people say, oh, I have to do the remote. I don't really want to do that, because we don't know how long this is going to last, and some people may not be able to come here. So I think we need a number of ways. I know the universities are important, but I think if you look at the job market, there's a lot of skilled work that needs to, I mean, here's one issue that, Paul, you might find dramatic, but a truck driver now is not really a truck driver. They're like a captain of a ship with a lot of technology, etc. It's one of the one of the biggest skill shortage areas in Canada is finding truck drivers. So I think we have to look at how do we get a whole range of people into the country so they can help the whole economy. It's not just going to be a whole pile of people with masters and PhDs. I mean, we find we can't get enough people Canadian born to go into trades. We've got to promote the trades with international students. So it's not one thing. I think we have to do a lot of things. But I think and I think, Minister, we're working on this, is how I understand we have millions of people in the last few months coming into the country from all over the place. So can we find a way to get the international students in a very safe way that not only is safe actually, but the optics of it doesn't look like a whole horde of people are coming in with COVID, etc. I think that's something that needs to be examined closely.
Thank you, John. And again, Minister, I hope you don't mind if we hear from the other panelists, and then you can maybe at various points to respond. And I do want to stress, you're not the guy. I don't. Not all of it's on your shoulders. There's lots of other government actors.
Just a lot of it.
We're not gonna put you on the spot too much. But Meti, do you want to jump in, and then Nina on sort of this uncertainty? What do? We got to do something, and then how do we position ourselves?
For sure. I'm going to echo portions of what John and Paul said. I think in the short term, flexing the rules and being ahead of the game. Let's assume COVID's going to be around till May. Why don't we make decision now till the next year, May? Why don't we go tell the world this is Canada's position? We want to welcome international students, and we're going to be the first country that safely let the students come to Canada. Certainly, there is a lot of pieces that has to come together to make sure. But I think like it shouldn't be as hard to know, let's extend the rules that we know it worked out for at least 2 intake ahead, right? We keep sitting, it's in our office, we've been working from home from 6.5 months. We thought it's 2 weeks. I remember we closed the office, say, let's go. We're going home for 2 weeks to come, and now second wave is happening. So certainly we need to be ahead of the game. And I think in the long term, how are we going to learn from the things that we done? We can reduce the cost of education. Yale University yesterday brought a most popular program of themselves online for free. how do we gonna, don't we want educating more students? Don't we wanna make education more accessible? Why as an institution, we don't work together and to reduce the cost of online education? Certainly, this is really a time that a lot of the schools losing for say because of the massive COVID hit. But if we look at the long term, can the students take their courses for fraction of the cost? Not obviously they can do their nursing program online, but they can't do, let's say, a semester of their business program online for $2,000. Don't we want to increase the number of international students coming? And a lot of the schools always have trouble to filling the first year, and then when retention happens, second year, there is more spot. I think we could be very smart and take advantage of long term. And I think Canada, in the past few years, due to the massive demand, had some visa approval challenges in some countries. We saw Vietnam welcoming more than 8,000 students. Suddenly last year dropped massively. If we want a diversification, right now about 50% of newest students coming to post-secondary are from India. For colleges level, 76%. For universities, obviously, is lower. And China, unfortunately, is flattening out, or let's say decreasing in terms of number. If we want a diversity, what is the government's plan in terms of going a lot? We at ApplyBoard dedicated to increase diversity, but we can't alone invest millions of dollars in a country the visa approval is 20%. We have to lose millions of dollars to get hundreds of students from, unfortunately, some African countries. But we forget Nigeria was the 5th toughest source of international students back in 2014. So my question is, if we want to talk about diversification, what is the plan? And how we can all sector work together to make those things happen. And frankly, Canada is going to be in the competitive position. Within a few weeks, we might have a US that come very aggressively in terms of welcoming international students. We have seen UK is coming extremely strong. Their number of visas just from India has doubled in the last year. They came back with their postgraduate work permit. Post-COVID, it's going to be, how do I say it? It's gonna be a plate of food with a hungry people. How can we go and make sure that we not lose our portion of the pie? Because I don't think so Canada is in position to lose the market share we have. Number of international students only increasing 6% in year. So I'll leave it at that.
Sorry, I apologize. It wouldn't be one with I didn't talk while muted. Nita, did you want to jump in and sort of have a last word? Then we're going to ask the minister to respond because there's, I think, a list of questions for him.
The questions and the concerns that the students have covered so far by John Tibbet and Meti, but just I'm gonna phrase it in another word and just gonna like touch some points regarding the upcoming intakes updates, because right now students are thinking about January and they think that if they defer it to September 2021, then they don't need to be worried about post-graduation work permit. And also what is another concern is that if we want to start online education, then the tuition fee is something that actually we didn't sign up that time for that much tuition fee to have the education online. So if government can offer some kind of discount to support international students and bring more international students who are really eager to achieve all the accommodation and facilities that Canada as a #1 country is offering to them, that would be great.
Well, Minister, as I said, I want to keep stressing, I know you're one piece of the pie, but there's been a lot raised about the current situation. And then I think moving forward, issues like diversification, visas, that tied to it and all that. So you have the floor to give some of your thoughts on where we go from here.
Short list. No, in all candor, I want to address my answer in two parts. The first is to talk about some of the ways in which we are trying to instill more confidence and more certainty so that international students continue to look at Canada as a premier destination. And just to quickly highlight some of the measures which we have put into place to respond and to mitigate against the disruption that COVID-19 has caused. I think we cannot underestimate the significance of the online remote learning opportunities that we have been able to create in conjunction with the provinces and the territories with the cooperation of the schools. And so this is really going to be and has been an important opportunity for international students to commence their classes in the fall. That has been driven by the two-stage approval process, which my department also innovated very recently in July. And as I said, we have issued over 56,000 positive approvals under that process. That's literally tens of thousands of international students who are now in a position to be able to start their classes remotely. The third thing is that we recognize that IRCC has many different lines of business, but we recognize that at this time of year that it's important to prioritize the issuing of student visas, which we are doing. We've also made it easier for students to get to that first stage by relaxing some of the usual requirements around biometrics and documentation in some cases, because the visa application centers in foreign countries remain either closed or at reduced capacity, not because of anything that Canada has done, but because of the decisions taken by foreign governments in order to protect their own population. So by relaxing biometrics and relaxing documentation, we're facilitating more students to be able to begin their classes online and remotely. We did have a modification in place that relaxed the requirements around part-time hour restrictions for those who are looking to start work in the postgraduate sphere. I will say that that was a measure that really was meant to not only help students, international students gain gainful employment, but also to provide those additional hands on deck in the health sector and in other essential services. So truly a complementary strategy with that particular measure. I remain very open to extending these modifications for as long as we need to. I know it came up in one of the interventions that we should look beyond into 2021. We are always going to listen very closely to our health experts and to the best available advice to determine how long these interim measures need to be put into place so that we can ensure the ongoing success of the program. And obviously that does depend on continued open lines of communication with the provinces as well as the schools themselves, and many of whom are represented on this call. Let me speak for just a few last brief moments about the opportunity, because this is what makes me optimistic. This is where I think we can and should cast our eyes into the short-term and long-term future and see that the international student program will be a great driver. First, we've seen that Canada has a huge competitive advantage in a number of areas, including in technology and innovation. And I refer to the technology we're using today. These are exactly the types of platforms that I think schools are looking to leverage more and more so that international students can bridge the geographical divide which exists because of COVID-19. I also think we have to look at the pathways that exist for international students in transitioning to permanent residence. One of the reasons why the international student program has been such a success is because Canada is a magnet for the best and the brightest from around the world. And people want to come and get an education in Canada. And if they bring their skills and their smarts and their talents and their experience, then of course we would want them to stay and make that transition. It's perfectly simpatico with our long-term needs when it comes to the demographic challenges around a slowing birth rate and an aging and increasingly retiring population, as well as meeting the needs today. Then there are many, many gaps within our economy, whether it's in health and food, and increasingly in the professional services sector. International students are a tremendous pool from which we can draw and where we can accelerate their integration as a result of the educational experience which they're acquiring in Canada. So when you take a look at the opportunities that lie ahead through the International Student Program, it makes me very optimistic, very confident, and I know that the students that come to Canada will shine bright like diamonds.
Great, thank you very much for all those comments. And I got a message from those that are monitoring the questions, and they're coming in fast and furious. So I know everything that you've said has sort of opened up other avenues that people want to explore. But why don't I see, I've got folks who are going through the questions, and just for those of you who are watching and have submitted questions, what we've tried to do, and I hope you understand this because there are so many questions, is group them together by themes. So even if it doesn't read word from word what you put in, we're trying to capture the essence of it. So here's the first, is a question for the minister around the quarantine plans for universities and colleges and essential or non-discretionary student travel to Canada. Many higher education institutions have put together quarantine plans that are in the process of being approved. Are there any updates around the timelines of these plans? Do we see this as a mechanism for reopening the country to international students in a responsible way?
Yeah, look, as I said in my remarks, Minister Haidu and myself have engaged directly with Paul's organization, as well as directly with the universities and colleges, not only here in Ontario, but right across the country. That work continues with great pace. I will say that part of the reason why we're placing such a great emphasis in this particular exercise is because we do want to be sure that we are mitigating against the risk of the pandemic. And if the last week has demonstrated anything, it's that we're not out of the woods yet, that there is still a very serious risk of community transmission. And, you know, I want to pick up on a comment that was made around, you know, some of the disinformation and the fear mongering that can sometimes occur at the border. In order to rebut that kind of boogeymaning, which is not helpful at all, we need to have in place a plan and a system by the schools, which is being done, that meets both federal and provincial guidelines as informed by the best available advice, which we're getting from our public health care officers. So I'm confident that that exercise is going to yield results. And obviously, we hope to be able to provide an update in the near future.
The next question, I think you may have answered by saying you're not there yet, because the next one for the minister is, once quarantine plans are approved for higher education institutions, do you anticipate that the current study permit date of March 18th admitted for essential travel will be expanded? And perhaps you've already said you're monitoring the situation.
No, I don't think we're simply monitoring the situation. We're working.
Not monitoring, but you're not there yet to make a decision. Yeah. Sorry.
Proactively, yeah, we're proactively working with provinces and territories as well as schools to ensure that their plans are really in tip-top shape, so that they address the risks of the spread of virus. And you know, it is an important exercise. Just to spend a moment on it, maybe Paul may want to elaborate, but you know, it's important that we at the federal level understand how campuses are going to plan around spacing, around protocols with regards to masks in classes, and as well as off-campus living. And I think this is where we owe where I think we have a real responsibility to international students, particularly those who are coming to Canada for the first time, to help them navigate into their new communities, to understand the information around what our health care standards are with regards to COVID-19. And so we are taking, I think, we are going to real lengths to be sure that we can support international students as much as possible in conjunction with the provinces who have day-to-day responsibility for the academic sector, as well as the schools themselves, who I know are really putting in the work. And, you know, stay tuned.
Well, the last question in that series, and then maybe I may open it up to Paul or John or others if they, but it's, would the approval of quarantine plans also affect essential or non-discretionary travel, including on-campus activities, time zone challenges with synchronous learning, and internet connectivity and bandwidth issues? So, Minister, I don't know if...
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak briefly about it, but I think we need to look at essential travel as being very much driven by the needs of the economy. And so there, is a process that is undertaken by a number of ministries, including IRCC, but not only us, equally Health Canada, as well as my colleague, Minister Blair, over at Public Safety. All three of us are in constant communication about identifying who falls into an essential category. And often in those cases, there are still very rigorous quarantining protocols to be sure that we are mitigating against the spread of the disease. International students is very much its own, has its own ecosystem. And by that, I mean, you have the travelers themselves, you have all of the people who interact with the school, faculty, support staff, and other students, domestic and otherwise. And so that's why we have taken this approach where we are working in a very intentional way with the academic sector, as well as the provinces and territories, to be sure that international students are supported right from the time that they apply for their permit to the time that they get to the border, to the time that they travel to the school, stay there, and then go back home again. And there are a lot of moving parts to that discussion. But as I say, I feel confident that the foundation is really shoring up, and certainly we will continue on with that work to ensure that the international student program remains a success.
Great. Now I see other. Thank you very much for that response. I see other panelists are nodding and twitching and all that. They want to jump in.
That's usually a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, I'm going to jump in and say something. Sometimes it's a lot easier to be the customer and kind of demand. And I want to kind of mention in again, I think Minister and his office done a phenomenal job. Like at ApplyBoard, we have 600 plus employees, and we are thinking of when we're going back to office, optional. And that alone is weeks of process and weeks of decision, weeks of answering concern. And now when you come to ecosystem of Canada, 37 million population, like obviously international students is super important, but at the same time, we added $350 billion to the country's as economy. I think like we need to sometimes be realistic with some of our asks. And I want to just say it as a private, like we lost millions of dollars this year due to COVID. But at the same time, when I see myself and with my co-founders, we need to make decision when we are planning to go as an optional back to office, and we have to go to many measures, and we're just a private company. So I just want to kudos to Minister and his office for what we're doing. I think like at the same time, what I want really to encourage all the audience, the schools that think long-term and plan for long-term. We way better off right now to think September 2021 is gonna be online and plan for that. And if it didn't happen, we're a winner of this game, rather than go intake by intake. Let's just for a second say 2021 is online. What is the plan for Canada? What is the plan for colleges, universities? And I would love if we have John from the largest institution, have the largest number of international students, and Paul from all the presidents of all the universities. So I'll let that answer to be by them, you know.
All right, John or Paul, or
Go ahead, John.
Okay, I mean, this is a complex issue. I mean, I understand, and I certainly understand, Minister, that you have to be prudent, and we are absolutely prudent at the college. There's no question. I guess what I'm wondering here is we will be in remote online learning probably for the winter, and I'm probably for the spring. But there are components that are face-to-face in the applied side that we are, you know, as I said, we have 4,000 students on campus now. I wonder, and this is a question, it's almost as much to Meti as to anyone. I have the impression that more students would come and enroll, even if they thought they could do online in Canada, because when I go around, this is very anecdotal, but when I go and, you know, I do it all remotely, but get gas, or I go here and I go there, and even to the Zaires, there's all kinds of our international students that are working part-time. and there is some sort of demand. So it's the right balance. I agree with you. I think abundance of caution, and that's what we've been doing. But as I said, I don't want to keep putting this out on the table, but we got 3,300 students through face-to-face. It cost us money, it cost us a lot of money, but we did it. So what is the balance between ensuring that the people that come here are healthy when they get here, and then obviously when they're here, they have to follow the rules? I mean, let's say a number of them come to Conestoga, they're still going to be in online learning, some of them, and some of them will be in face-to-face, but we're not just going to open it up to all kinds of people. So I think what Meti, I think you're saying is, what is that balance between, and I'll say this, I think we probably should have been tighter on our borders. I know you weren't responsible for that, but in the early days, we had people coming off celebrity cruises infecting people. Is there a way that we can ensure that international students coming in the near future, you'd almost know for sure they'd have a stamp that, look, I've done this, they've had the test, they quarantined for 14 days, but they're not going to run around our campus, I can assure you, unless they have to be on our campus. Correct? I mean, they're not going. We're not just going to put 10,000 international students on our campus because they're there. The ones that can study remotely will, and the ones that will study face-to-face will, but we'll make sure we protect them. And that's what we've been doing, because you can't bring 3,300 people on in the summer, have no one get COVID without taking significant precautions. Look, up the street at Laurier, they've been there a week and they've got 4 cases. And in Alabama, they have 1,000 cases in about the first week, but that's the United States, that they have other problems, other issues to deal with. Anyway, that's my contribution to that. Look, it's a complex issue, and safety has to be the priority, no question.
I'll just build on that if I can, John, for a moment, and say that, just checking to make sure my mic is on, that one of the shared commitments we all have around this panel is to make sure we do things in a safe way. And also we need to recognize that the trajectory of the pandemic is uncertain itself. I think it's fair to say, Minister, that earlier in the summer, we thought we had a path that would see students arrive a little sooner than they have already. But things happen. And so universities and colleges alike are able to respond nimbly to those changing circumstances in terms of pedagogy and moving students online early in the pandemic, and also in terms of addressing the needs of international students. You know, it's important to note that I think University of Toronto had 800 students, international students through the summer. Memorial had another 800 international students through the summer. We've shown that we can manage these well, and we're pleased to work with the federal and provincial authorities to demonstrate the care that we will provide to international students. All that being said, it's a dynamic situation globally. And so I'd also like to pick up on Meti's point about how do we collectively look a little further ahead than 2 weeks at a time. That's not a criticism of the minister or the department. I think, again, one of the things that will stand out when we look at this pandemic in the rearview mirror is that Canada's public service has done extraordinary things that you could not ever imagine them being able to do in a short period of weeks. And similarly, the post-secondary community pivoted enormously quickly in order to meet the needs of domestic students and international students, in order to provide PPE and chemical reagents, in order to repurpose residences and the like through the crisis. And as we look ahead, what are the ongoing strengths that we have as a country? And we know that Minister Mendicino is working around the clock to make this happen. Where we will need to make sure, as these protocols get approved, is to make sure that there's a really clear line of sight across the federal departments, across the provincial governments, about what those terms of arrival are, so that we can send a loud and clear message to international students that you are welcome. This will be how you'll be supported. So we've got a set of shared goals there, Minister.
I want to also, again, John, thank the minister again. I mean, this was a phenomenal effort, this changing and responding to the online. I mean, I have to tell you, it's greatly appreciated. It saved us a lot of money and private opportunities for thousands and even at our place, thousands of international students. I want to thank you personally for that. It's made a difference.
That is a great opening for the next set. I'm going to move off as we don't have that much more time. And this is a question that has come in different guises. And I'm going to start with Meti and Nina, I think it's a very important question. How is the shift to online delivery affecting international students who are taking their courses from their home countries? Are students feeling positive about that education experience? Do Canadian schools need to do more for offshore students? Is there anything the government can do, we can do to be more supportive? And I think this is a theme you see in a lot of it is, it's all great. I'm sorry, I'm going to play the devil's advocate. It's all great to be saying you're doing it from home, but hey, I'm an international student. I signed up to come to Canada, and I'm sitting in my parents' basement. So I'll start with Meti and Nina and talk about how much of that's a challenge, and is there anything we can do?
John, it's a great question, and I think that I can give you the answer based on the minimum knowledge that we have. Unfortunately, May, it wasn't a massive intake for many students to start online. So we're really gonna start hearing their feedback in the next upcoming weeks, because September is the largest intake. 60 to 70% of its students start September. But certainly there are some questions to be answered, and I'm just putting myself as in the shoes of international students. And some flexibility from the schools teaching their programs in their own time zone. The students sitting in China, why should it wake up at 3 a.m. to take courses? That is a question that I ask many of the schools. I think we all have our own part to fix and try something else, right? Or some of the schools didn't maybe put the easier courses that could have been delivered online faster and easier for the students from. And I think the biggest challenge is sometimes we forget the privilege of living in Canada. I've been privileged enough to be in 20 plus countries. I've been in the cities that your phone doesn't even load the iMessage. So sometimes we forget that some of these students were coming for better education. There is not a fast internet in their hometown. So I think there is a lot of challenges. There is many of the students couldn't even start and miss this opportunity. But I want to kind of open it, and I think I know we've been kind of giving those suggestions. For example, IELTS or TOEFL or the English test for students is starting online. It's super important that you vet their English. But then government came and said, we're not accepting any online English tests. How are we going to say, we teach you online and it's a great education, but we don't accept any English tests that you done online? Some of the stuff we have done as a country, it's sometimes, and there are institutions don't accept online tests. I don't want to just put it on minister or his team. There are questionable things. We don't accept online education to give the students master degree or let them to start the master because you study distance learning. But I want to open it and look at some of other institution level and at the government. Some of decisions we made maybe 10 years back, 15 years back was before pandemic. Pandemic is gonna be as strong as World War II. We're gonna remember this in history. This is gonna be a 10 years ride. So what I want to say, there is a challenge. This challenge is gonna be overcome in a year or two. But what can we do as an institution, as a government, to create a better path for millions of other international students coming in the next 50 to 100 years to Canada?
Nina, do you want to pick up?
I just want to add some feedbacks that I received for September students who just started maybe in 2 weeks their program so far. So one of the challenge is time zone. That sometimes it's like midnight, as Meti mentioned, and it's like in Canada, the daytime, and they have to participate to classes, and like they are the breadwinner and they are in different positions. So that's one of the challenge that they are facing. Also in terms of materials and purchasing materials, like they're saying that, okay, we have to buy some books, and right now how we can provide it. So if there would be any option regarding receiving some materials, as for online education, they're providing video recorded materials or PDF format, and it is hard for them to like go through all of them if they have to study by themselves and not being able to interact with other students, as like Meti and I had the opportunity to be in Canada and like interact with others to increase our knowledge, that would be another challenge that they are facing nowadays.
I think we're at 46 questions or something in the
Oh my
line.
goodness. John, may I just jump in to say
I'm
that
opening it to other panelists. I'm just saying we've got lots of other questions too.
again, sort of out of the urgency of the first 2 weeks of back to school in Canada, I think it's fair to say that institutions are continuing to learn and continuing to adapt to the reality. I mean, we in the university sector, we moved 1.4 million learners online in 10 days in March. Then between March and September, people have been investing in their course content and their delivery online. It's not to say it's perfect yet. So there's learning and adapting that's still going on. And the question of synchronous and asynchronous, we also get that within the context of Canada, where we cross 5 time zones. And so universities are adapting with course sections and different elements of the course being offered at different times around the clock. I think the other thing that I've been struck by is how universities have provided online orientation and online support to students, and that's been really valuable for international students. And that there's quite a robust extracurricular online environment. No, you may not be able to physically go to a gym, but there are clubs and activities that students around the world are now participating in. And that's to the benefit of all the students, Canadian and international.
Okay, I just want to jump in. I know, Minister, I said before, we're like a ship hit by a couple of torpedoes, but what's happened in the automotive industry and some other industries, they invested in making the manufacturing processes more sophisticated, more automated, more AI. And I think a really important goal for both universities and colleges would be to make Canada the most sophisticated nation as far as delivering, let's call it remotely, and infusing more technology, even simulation onto computers that they can. We're trying to do more and more of the labs now, labs in engineering, that perhaps they can do them on the computer, et cetera, and then come in and reduce the amount of class time. But I think we're going to see a world also, well, this is not just going to benefit international students, but we have Ray Tanguay from, used to head up TMC and TMMC, Toyota, and Bob McGee, who's the chairman of the board of Woodbridge, and they tell me that about 80% of the automotive workforce needs upskilling, upgrading, and they need to do it online. They can't leave the job. So why not a goal here that ties in international? Let's make us the most sophisticated nation in the world as far as being able to deliver education at all levels, whether it's truck driving or doing, a master's, et cetera, et cetera. And that would be a good area to invest, because I think in the future, like we're looking at a world down the road where a student may decide to go face-to-face full-time. I think there's going to be a lot of students with financial issues. Some may say they'll do some courses on a face-to-face, but they want to do the rest online. I think we're going to see a blend, and this world is going to change, and someone want to do it all remote. If it gets very sophisticated, I mean, Athabasca's not done too bad a job. They just purely on remote. So I think we should think of that, of not remote, oh my God, I'm doing this. I mean, look, we're doing this here. I mean, who would have thought that we'd have this? This is probably a better meeting than we could have ever had in a meeting room somewhere, because people have to pay attention and et cetera, et cetera. So I just wonder about that, about let's become the best remote learning, technically infused learning nation in the world. Why not set that as a goal?
John, can I just chime in really, really quickly? Because I know you want to get to the next question.
The floor is yours.
Just really quickly, I totally agree with everything that's just been said. And I think that one of the ways in which we are supporting the post-secondary sector at the federal level is by creating initiatives like the Strategic Infrastructure Fund. And I know, for example, maybe a little less than 2 years ago, Ministers Chagger and Baines announced a fairly significant investment at the University of Waterloo. Now, I realize that's one institution, but it just demonstrates that we are looking at ways to create that critical digital infrastructure within which I think our academic sector will be globally competitive. But in addition to that, and in the context of the present pandemic, We announced $450 million in wage support and research support for faculty and staff at within the post-secondary sector, as well as $291.6 million for students. And I will just say, like, that's what we're doing at the federal level. I think it is equally important to engage the provincial government to ensure that these very meritorious arguments are also made at that level, so that we can work together to ensure that the schools have the digital and other critical infrastructure pieces in play, and continue to leverage the international student program to work in conjunction with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Now, unfortunately, we have a ton of questions, but I also am conscious of the time, and I'm conscious of the fact that our panelists are busy people who've given up their time this afternoon. So I think we're going to head towards a bit of a wrap up, and I'd like to ask each of the panelists. I could be cute and say something only optimistic, but maybe I'll say something optimistic but realistic about really the theme of today. Where do we go from here? And both in terms of the uncertainty and in terms of the long term. So maybe I'm actually going to go in opposite order, and I'll start with Nina. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we'll go in opposite order of the panels. So Nina.
I'm sure that we all are practicing online lifestyle type that we all are facing all around the world, and we are learning the lessons through it, so we can do better in the future.
Great, thank you. Meti.
First off, the most, thanks, Minister. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I think it's an honor to be part of this panel. I'm going to actually say a person, an Iranian students in 2010 dream of coming to this country, came to this country. I studied at Conestoga College. We had the fastest growing technology company. And today, actually, by LinkedIn, we were called by the third Canada's a startup by LinkedIn, and that was a today announcement. What I want to say to anyone that's helping international students, let them know it's possible. If we made it, it's going to be possible for everyone. And I just want to thank for Canada and then everyone in Canada that making those possible. Let's just focus on future, and future is going to be very bright for all of us.
Great. Thank you. John Tibbetts.
Okay, two things I'd say. I look, this will be over at some point, but I think we're going to be far more sophisticated in educational delivery methodologies when this is over. I really believe that will be a greater, I think, greater benefit also to a lot of people out there in the workforce. We're going to learn how to do things that are going to help domestic employees here keep their skills up. The other one is I think that there really is going to be a greater commitment and a greater recognition of the importance of international students and immigrants in Canada. That's what I see. I mean, all of a sudden we're having these conversations within our college, within our board, and they're realizing, oh my God, I mean, the foundation of our finances, quite frankly, and a lot of the quality improvements are based on the international students, and not only that, our ability to serve our really comprehensive job market here. We can't do it without the international students. So I think there's positives here. We'll get through this, and hopefully it'll be a better world.
Great. Minister, you have some parting comments.
Yeah, sure. I think if I'm going to be realistic, it's that we're not out of the woods yet. But if I'm going to be hopeful and optimistic, it's that we've demonstrated that by working together that we can innovate around the challenges which are presented by COVID-19 to ensure that the international student program will be a great success for those who come here. And there's good reason for that. One, I mean, it's the promise that Canada offers. And I come back to what I said earlier about why it is that students come to Canada. They're coming for the experience of not only gaining an education here, but also giving back. And that's what enriches us. It makes us more diverse. It makes us more competitive. It'll drive our economic recovery coming out of COVID-19, and it's going to drive our long-term prosperity. And I think the key to realizing that optimistic and hopeful future is for us to continue to work together as we have been doing with a great degree of success. So I will just say to you, John. Thank you very much. And to my co-panelists and everybody else who joined, it's been a real pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Merci.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Minister. Paul.
I feel odd following the minister because the minister said it closed so well. Let me thank the panelists for a really great discussion. Let me just underscore how the post-secondary sector in Canada, both colleges and universities, were truly innovative, dynamic, and responsive in the first 6 months of the pandemic. And going forward, we can help accelerate Canada's economic and social recovery. We're going to do that for Canadians and with Canadians, but also with international students. And when we look around the world, we think, what other country has got the promise that Canada has? What other country has got the opportunity that Canada has? And how we emerge out of this stronger, more resilient, more united, we can do this. And conversations like this today get us closer to that goal.
Great. Well, listen, thank you all very much. I want to thank everyone who's been watching, and I want to apologize. There are so many questions that we didn't have a chance to get to today, but I know this is a conversation that's going to continue. And I should tell the panelists who maybe haven't had a chance to see the string of questions and messages coming through. Many of them are questions, but a lot of them are messages saying, good point, well said, great job. Yeah, so I think we have an audience that's really appreciated what you've contributed here today. As I just said a few moments ago, you're all very, very busy people. Thank you for taking time to be with us. Minister, obviously, this is, I can't even fathom what you're going through these days, but thank you for taking time out of that extraordinary schedule I'm sure you have. Paul Davidson, John Tibbetts, Meti, Nina from ApplyBoard, thank you all for coming. As I said, thank the viewers. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laszlo to have the last word on behalf of the Canadian International Council Waterloo branch. So Laszlo, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, John, very much. And with this, I'd like to, on behalf of the Waterloo Region CIC, I'd like to thank our guests, our panelists, of course, Minister Mendicino, Meti, Nina, Paul, President Tibbetts, and of course, John, our fearless moderator for this wonderful, engaging, and so hopeful, I think, panel. So thank you so much again, and hope to see you all at one of our upcoming events. Thanks so much. Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bye.